All right. Well, Andrew was our first talk of the day, first talk of the week, and he set a high bar. It was an amazing, amazing talk to think about how we can share insights with the world and do that in a really thought-provoking way to help yourself build a brand, help your company build a brand, and help the people kind of out in the world better understand what is happening in all these different ways. We're going to turn it now to our second talk. So Anna Klutho is a research leader at LinkedIn, who is one of the companies doing really pioneering work about how to understand the world through their own data. So, and as you might imagine, LinkedIn has an incredible data set on what's going on with jobs and job seekers, and I'm a huge admirer of their work, and it's helped me better understand the world of work and what's going on in the labor market. So she's going to talk about all of the work that they're doing and how they're releasing different data sets out into the world. So Anna, excited to have you come talk to us about what is going on at LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Wow. My name is Anna Klutho, and I am a Senior Market Research Manager at LinkedIn. And today, I am excited to talk to you about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and something that I believe will be the next frontier for our role, and honestly, something that will probably future-proof us in today's AI-driven world. And as the title suggests, I'm going to be talking about data sources, but more specifically, why one data source is not enough, and the magic that can happen when you bring it all together. But first, I want you to imagine that you are hosting a dinner party. You have some very important guests that you are looking to impress. You have planned the meal. They arrive to your house. You sit them down for dinner, and you serve them one dish. And it's an amazing dish. It is a dish that you know how to make inside and out. You have the flavors down. You know the technique. You've got the timing. But one dish does not a dinner party make. And your guests are polite. They're going to sit. They're going to eat. But they're going to leave hungry. But the worst part is they're not going to tell you that they're still hungry. They're just not going to come back. And that's a problem. But imagine instead that you designed a 4-course meal instead. Each course on its own is amazing, but together it creates a symphony of flavors, a sequencing so perfect, an experience so satisfying that your guests are still talking about it the next day. This is what great research programs do, but a lot of us are still only delivering one dish. But a lot of us talk about mixed methods, right? There's a qual and a quant. There's an interview plus a survey, and that's good, but let's challenge that thinking today. That most research programs, even the greatest ones, are still pulling from a very narrow pool of data sources. We're thinking, what's in our qualitative toolkit? What's in our quant toolkit? But that's not giving us the full picture, and we deserve to deliver that to our stakeholders. They want that full picture. And that's not a methods problem, that's a sources problem. So let's get into that. My argument today is that mixed methods on their own is not enough, that the next frontier is mixed sources. When we combine attitudinal research with things like behavioral data, support feedback, macro signals, we don't just get more data, we get a better quality of insight, one that is harder to ignore, easier to act on, and far more likely to enact change. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, what type of sources are available, how you can combine them, and the magic that happens when you do. But let's take a step back and take a look at why we might not be doing that today. I'm sure many of us have done research where we're asking respondents or participants, why don't you do a certain behavior? And there's some common responses that we often hear. First, I don't know what's out there. And it's true, when you join your organization, nobody hands you a map of the different data sources inside or outside your organization. But we're researchers. We are innately curious. So how can we use this curiosity to explore what's possible, what might be available for us, even if we still wish that we had that map? Second, that's somebody else's job. But let's say it. Ownership of the data does not mean ownership of the insight. We as researchers, we know humans, we know human behavior, and so we are more than qualified to be able to interpret just about any data source. Third, I don't have the tools or the access. That might have been a barrier a little while ago, but with all of the advancement in AI, it's making it easier than ever to get access to lots of different data sources without the true data skills underneath it. And then finally, I wouldn't know how to analyze it. But we're not asking you to be a data analyst. It's instead being able to understand a trend, identify a pattern, just know what a number is telling you. And if you still need help, there's lots of organizations that can help you, or departments within your organization that can help. If you bring the query, or the question, they can come with the query. So we've debunked all of these different barriers. Let's talk about those different sources. So I'm going to talk about the 4 great courses of a great research meal, and then the one pairing that brings it all together. So let's talk first about the appetizer course, which is behavioral data, right? The appetizer sets the stage for the meal, and so does the behavioral data provide the foundation for our research story. And this is what individuals are doing in your product, right? It's what the clicks that they're doing, the sessions, the products, the features that they're using. And this is the most honest data source that we have available because it's not relying on people telling us what they're doing, what they're thinking, but instead it's what they're actually doing in the product. And this can be found throughout your company's data warehouse, and there's lots of different teams that can help you get access to this with whatever sort of analytic tools that you have available. But what I love about behavioral data is the fact that it sits at the individual level. Being able to pair it in with different type of research sources at that respondent level gives you so much richer understanding of the what and the why, and being able to better diagnose what's going on in a certain situation. I especially love when they disagree with each other, when a survey says that they love your feature, but the behavioral data says that they've never even used it. That's really interesting. Next, we have our soup course. Soup is really weighty, it's warming, it's satisfying. And so telemetry does the same thing. It provides a weight to your insight story. It's those KPIs or business metrics that talk about the health of your organization, the vital signs of your product. And it's often a North Star for somebody in your organization. And so because of that, because lots of people care about it, it can be found lots of different places, whether it's in reviews, scorecards, or dashboards, looking at things like adoption rates, engagement rates, conversion, churn, etc. And again, lots of people care, so lots of people can help. But what I love here, again, is the idea that provides weight. This is what your business cares about. This is the language that they're using when they talk about success. And so if you're able to connect your research towards what other parts of your business cares about, you're speaking their language and giving them something that they just can't ignore. Third, we've got our dessert course, or support feedback. Dessert can be sweet, but it also can be sour. And it can be that thing that we often think about later on after the meal is over. And what I love about support feedback is it's the unfiltered voice of the most frustrated users. They're coming to us unsolicited to tell us what's wrong in their experience. They're telling us in tickets or chats or overall calls. And it's telling us more specifically where in the experience it's being broken down. Is it a particular friction point? Is it a part of the experience itself? It can be found in a customer service platform, CX, voice of customers. I work with our product operations team to get this type of feedback. But it's additional qualitative evidence to weave into your narrative, bringing it closer into the product itself. Fourth, we have social listening, or as I like to call it, the cheese course. Cheese course can be unexpected, right? It's a little bit surprising. And to lean into that cheese pun, it can have the sharpest insights as well. Because it's what users say when they think that we're not listening. They're answering questions that we didn't even think to ask in our research, and they're doing it in a public sphere. It can be found in those reviews in app stores, places like Reddit, X, LinkedIn, and there's lots of different fancy social listening tools that you can get to access this type of data. But because it's publicly available, we can get scrappy. It can be a simple search in any of these different platforms, searching on your brand, on your topic, whatever you care about. And then finally, the wine pairing, which is macro signals, which is honestly my favorite type of data source to weave in, partly because it brings us out beyond our organization, beyond our product. It's talking about what's happening outside, right? It's labor market trends, economic indicators, industry trends, competitive intelligence, but it grounds our insights in reality. If we're just focused within our particular product, within our particular business, we might be missing the other factors outside of our organization that's influencing behaviors and trends. And this data is also publicly available. In the case of labor market trends, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has both raw data that you can play with to your heart's delight, or there's lots of places that synthesizes this into more polished perspectives in places like the Wall Street Journal. But there's other sources that can sit behind paywalls, and so teams like competitive intelligence or strategy teams can really help you get what's behind that bar there. So we talked about 4 different courses. We talked about the one pairing. Each one of these provides different perspectives and different dimensions to a single question, but the magic is bringing them all together. We've been talking a lot in theoreticals. I'd love to bring this more specific to an example from the work that I do at LinkedIn, specifically focused on job seekers. So I run a tracking study focused on job seeker sentiment, wanting to understand what's driving job seeker sentiment on the platform. It's a fairly simple concept in and of itself, but requires a more complex answer. And so looking at the 4 different courses that which I'll build the meal around this question. I'll anchor first on the survey data. This has my hero metrics. It has my drivers framework. It tells me whether sentiment is going up or down, and it gives me an understanding of what might be influencing that trend. But I know there's lots of stories about the job market today, that there's going to be questions about how much the macro is influencing sentiment. I want to get ahead of that, and so I'm pulling in macro signals. And as much as there's those public sources that I talked about earlier, LinkedIn has a lot of proprietary data that I can easily bring into my story, whether it's hiring rates from our economic graph team, application trends that we see on platform, or general consumer sentiment towards the ability to find and get a job through the Workforce Confidence Index. And being able to bring these in and analytically understand how much is this influencing sentiment, I can say that macro does have some influence, but it's still our own experience that drives job seeker sentiment towards the platform. So with that in mind, I'm looking at my support feedback, working with my product operations team to understand where in the product is it breaking down, where are there escalation patterns or key themes that are coming up, and how does that align to what I'm seeing in my drivers in my survey. And then finally, to make it an answer that my stakeholders cannot ignore, is bringing in behavioral data to really quantify the cost of inaction. By being able to append at the individual level, what does engagement look like, activity on the platform, I can say that those job seekers with the lowest sentiment have lowest engagement and higher use of competitors. And so if we don't reverse this trend, we're going to be seeing some adverse reactions to our North Star metrics. So 4 different courses, 4 different sources, weaving in a narrative. When I had just one different source, it was interesting. It gave me a perspective, but there was a lot of open questions about what was behind it. But when I brought the 4 sources together, it gave a more comprehensive answer of what's going on, the issue at hand, where the problem sits, and the cost of inaction. And that's really the magic of bringing all the sources together. So reframing this and bringing this all together, I do love a metaphor, so please bear with me. There's more than more than just being a researcher, it's being an insights culinarian. And so a culinarian is someone who does more than just cook, right? They know flavors, they know technique, but they know how to make a meal memorable. And an insights culinarian does the same thing, but with data. Treating data sources like a Michelin chef treats individual dishes, not as single inputs, but as key elements that reinforce, that elevate, that escalate the overall experience. Because this is how we get a seat at the table. When we're just bringing individual findings, we're a vendor. But when we bring a layered story that goes across sources, we're that strategic partner. We're not just answering the question that was asked, we're reframing it towards a question that should have been asked, and is that worth asking? And that's really the value of being that insights culinarian. So if you want to go on this mantle and be an insights culinarian, looking ahead to Monday, some 3 questions for you to consider. First, what's your go-to dish? What single source, single program are you working with today, and what does it answer for us? And then second, what's the next course? Using that creative curiosity, what type of data might help validate or deepen your finding? Who in your organization or outside your organization could help? And then third, who's your sous chef? There's lots of parts of the organization that might be trying to answer the same question, but from a different perspective. So who can you partner with to work together to answer a more comprehensive answer? So closing it out here, we all came into this field because we wanted to influence better products, better decisions, better outcomes. And to do that, we need a seat at the table. But our stakeholders they don't want a snack, they want a full meal. And so to do this, we need to be that insights culinarian, someone who brings it all together into that satisfying meal, leveraging our techniques, leveraging our recipes to design that cohesive meal itself. So with that, I'll close out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. I don't know about you guys, I'm feeling a little hungry now, but I love the metaphor. And I think I said earlier about how it's really important to be empathetic towards our stakeholders, especially execs. And I think the way you presented this makes a ton of sense. Like, execs don't care about, like, oh, I'm not, like, if you're a chef, like, I'm not a pastry chef, or I don't cook proteins, I just do veggies, or I don't do apps, I just do mains. Like, that, they don't care about that. Like, they don't care about those divisions of labor. They care about, like, what is the insight, the holistic insight that I need to know to make an important business decision and to influence where our company is heading. And if you can bring that all together, that helps them in a way that can really truly make an impact. So I love that metaphor. So my first question for you is, when you are trying to work with some of these stakeholders, I'm not going to name any names, but sometimes some of these partner teams aren't actually that willing to collaborate because they see their data as their data, and they want to kind of keep their data in their little silo, and they're feeling pretty protective of it. So how do you deal with those types of teams or stakeholders that maybe the data science team doesn't want to share their dashboards that they built, or they don't want to give you access to the full data warehouse? Again, I'm not going to name any names myself, but I have seen that come up before. So how do you deal with those situations?
Yeah, and for sure. I think it's underrated, the importance of relationships in building this. It doesn't happen immediately. It happens over time when you're aligning on shared perspectives, shared objectives. But there's also a little bit of a bull in the china shop that needs to happen too, because again, we're in this together. They might be owning one piece of the puzzle, but they're not owning the insight. And so are there ways to kind of deliver value, inch your way into it, but also just kind of take it a little bit back, because we're ultimately trying to answer the same sort of question.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think you can't just ask somebody on day one, hey, nice to meet you, can you give me your full data set? They're like, wait, what's your name and why are you asking me for this? I think the relationships makes a ton of sense. Any questions for Anna from the audience? Okay, oh yeah, we got one in the middle here.
Hi, Anna. Thank you. I think as a foodie, you really got me on the metaphor. It was really engaging to sort of hear and, pay attention to the different courses. But my question for you is there a particular source that you sort of pay more attention to or give more importance to in your story, or is there a particular source that stakeholders are more interested to sort of hear from, and how do you sort of divide your attention between all these different sources?
Yeah, For sure. I'll say that I don't have a single playbook for every single question. I tend to kind of explore and advance depending on where the research question or my hypothesis take me. The tracker study that I mentioned, I've been working on it for 3 years. And so as we all know with tracking studies, it gets a little bit stale. And so you're always looking for that new perspective, that new insight to be able to showcase each time you're trying to report and drive impact within your organization. And so in that case, I always think about what's in my toolkit. Again, those 4 different courses, the one wine pairing, and really try to figure out what's going to be the most hero type metric for me at a particular moment in time. So for an example, earlier this year, there was a particular topic that was showcased within the tracking study that was like really spiking as a key driver. And in that case, it was the support feedback that was going to be the strongest validator for me to bring that in. So in that case, I spent a lot more time with my product operations partner to be able to weave that in and provide more validation, as opposed to when we were earlier in the tracking study looking to showcase value. That's when I was bringing in more of the macro signals to really showcase what was going on and help answer those intermediate questions as we were still getting used to what the program was telling us and how we could best use it.
Awesome. Yeah, we have another question up in the front. And guys, just FYI, as you listen to these talks, please think about what are the questions I want to ask these amazing speakers. Like, I want this to be as participatory and inclusive as possible, so don't be shy about asking questions. All right, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Brilliant. I absolutely loved it. The analogy, the idea. I think, we sell ourselves a lot of the time as mixed method, but mixed source to me makes a lot of sense. My question is, when we're thinking about, projects that you're working on, a lot of the times for me, if I want to cook a 5-course meal, but the people I'm serving, want it immediately, and there's not really time for the elaborate concoctions that I want to create. I'm curious, in regards to maybe triaging these things for stakeholders, when you're working on a tight timeline, how do you kind of pick certain ones? I assume business telemetry might be effective for people who, look at numbers, but how do you think about things on a tight timeline?
Yeah. And whenever we're faced with questions, it's always that balance, right? Because we're evaluating not just the type of sources, we're thinking methodology, but we're thinking about timing, like what's really going to be feasible and the timing that we have available, but also right-sizing it with a particular question. So my question back would be, when they're asking for the tight timeline, is it a quick, more kind of directional type answer? Or is it a question that deserves more of a complete deep dive because it's going to have stronger implications down the line? Because we still have some power to be able to push back and say, this is what's possible in this immediate time frame, but your question deserves a lot more. If you give me 2 more days, 3 more days, I can give you a more comprehensive picture. It's really layering in kind of the pros and cons and thinking, again, what's feasible now versus what we could do if we had a lot more leeway within that. Do they really want a snack, or would they just be happier with a bigger meal, like a burger or something like that?
Awesome. Well, Anna, I think we've reached the end of our time with you. Thank you. This is an amazing talk, and I think a really apt analogy. So
Thank you.
Join me. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. All right, so remember that metaphor. I'm definitely going to remember it as I go back to my day-to-day work at Slack, after thinking about how can we kind of enrich the meal we're offering to our stakeholders. And spot-on question at the end. Sometimes our stakeholders are showing up at the restaurant and wanting their food served immediately, so we have to think about how to give them food as quickly as possible. So lots of great Q&A. Thanks for the questions from the audience. All right, it's time for our third talk of the morning.